They remastered Alan Wake? That's so strange. Why would they do that? Oh, that's why. It looks pretty cool. Maybe I should like do a video about it or something? Alan Wake is a horror writer having trouble starting a new novel. His wife Alice convinced him to come to Bright Falls, a small mountain town, to relax and recover. They rent a cabin on Divers Island, a small island on Cauldron Lake. Alice is intensely afraid of the dark, so much so she avoids going outside at night. When they arrive at Divers Island, Alan realizes that Alice planned the trip to get him to start writing again, and they get in a fight. Alan storms off as power in the cabin goes out. Alice starts freaking out, but he leaves her in the dark. Shortly after Alan returns, Alice has disappeared. He realizes she has fallen off the deck into Cauldron Lake. He dives in after her. He wakes up in a crashed car on the side of the road surrounded by forest, and he can't remember how he got there. He begins making his way back to town to get help. I had a lot of nostalgia for the original Alan Wake. I played it as a teenager on the Xbox 360. What I remember liking the most was the feeling of the spaces. I remember the Oh Dear Diner, the mental hospital, and the farmhouse. I remember my flashlight illuminating hidden arrows and following the clues to find stashes. I remember going through the town after the darkness had overrun it. I remember Barry running through the night with Christmas lights around his chest. I remember the metalheads Thor and Odin and the concert shootout. The original Alan Wake was made during a different era of gaming, with the game being released in May 2010, the same year as the first Red Dead Redemption, Fallout New Vegas, Amnesia The Dark Descent, Bioshock 2, and Splinter Cell Conviction, as well as a bunch of movie games which I'm sure were great. I remember there being a lot of browns and muted colors, and the character models and animation were still generally pretty stiff back then, which made me kind of dread cutscenes. I didn't hear anything about Alan Wake 2 before it came out. For me, one day it was just out. I was kind of skeptical. What does a sequel to Alan Wake, an exceedingly linear game, a game that came from a not particularly experimental or expressive period of big budget game design, look like in 2023? From the start of Alan Wake 2, it's clear the game is going to be much darker and more mysterious than the original game. Opening with a shot of a deer carcass floating in Cauldron Lake, half its head mirrored by the water. You awake as an old man naked on a muddy beach, surrounded by knotted driftwood. The sound swells as you stumble your way ashore. As you enter the forest, you see figures in deer masks watching you from the distance. You head up the trail and they surround you, grab you, and ratchet strap you to a picnic table. They stab you in the chest, and you hear your rib bones crack as they cut out your heart. But the murder is interrupted when two hikers stumble across the scene, and the figures in deer masks panic and flee. The original game for me never felt like real horror. It felt like a third-person shooter cosplaying as horror. And even when I was a teen, it never scared me. The original game had a T for teen rating, and the studio who made Alan Wake, Remedy, describes Alan Wake 1 as an action thriller, where Alan Wake 2 is described as survival horror and gets an M rating. After the bassy title drop, you switch to playing as Saga Anderson, an FBI agent sent to investigate a series of murders that have been happening in the Bright Falls area. The opening of Alan Wake 2 plays as a mystery game. You meet up with the two goofy Bright Falls cops, Deputy Mulligan and Thornton, and they lead you through the forest to where the murder took place. You look at the details of the crime scene, inspecting the body, profiling, and searching the area for clues. This sense of mystery and slower opening wasn't really there in the first game. The body is the former FBI agent Nightingale, who more than 10 years ago was fired and went missing shortly after. Why did he show up now, and what was he doing in Bright Falls? Was this a ritual? And if so, what was a ritual for? You figure out that this is part of a string of murders that have been happening near Cauldron Lake, which you suspect are being committed by a cult called the Cult of the Tree. The game is slowly presenting the parts of its story, while holding back its supernatural elements. In the first game, shortly after finding himself in a crashed car, Alan tries to find his way back to town. He makes his way through the forest, but his path is blocked by a man shrouded in darkness, who's shouting threateningly, and who approaches Alan and tries to attack him. This is your first combat encounter, and the game teaches you that you must break the darkness that surrounds the enemies with a flashlight before you can damage them. Soon after, Alan figures out that a dark force is corrupting and controlling people, making them attack him. You receive a phone call from someone who says they have your wife, and they want the manuscript pages, or they'll hurt Alice. One of the ways that the Alan Wake games tell their story is through manuscript pages you find in the world. These pages predict events that are going to happen, and tell characters where to go and what to do. These pages are written like one of Alan's horror novels. After investigating the crime scene, Agent Saga heads to the Oh Deer Diner in Bright Falls to meet up with the town's sheriff. They talk to the people who stumbled upon Nightingale's murder. Saga finds out they are true crime writers from New York who have come to investigate and write about the vanishing of Alan Wake. They were searching the forest around Cauldron Lake when they witnessed the murder. After interviewing them, the sheriff leads you to the police station and you head down to the morgue in the basement to begin an autopsy. You find there is somehow writing on the victim's heart. You find a manuscript page in Nightingale's chest where his heart used to be. The sheriff says he recognizes the writing and pulls out other manuscript pages. Then the lights go out, and when the lights come back on, the sheriff has vanished. The body of Nightingale rises up and attacks the people in the room, killing one of the other cops and throwing Saga to the ground. When you wake up, Nightingale is stalking through the hallway. You run into the light. He can't see you in the light and walks past you. You run into the hallway and grab your gun off the floor. Then Nightingale charges you, and with a flashlight and gun, you shoot Nightingale. His body vanishes before it hits the ground. At this point, I was on board. The feeling of the first game is there, but everything is working better. The cinematics are blending into the gameplay, the game has better rhythm, and the spaces are interesting and handcrafted in a way they weren't always in the first game. Over this coming series of videos, I want to try and look at how Remedy evolved a game from 2010 to fit into 2023. What elements were kept from the original game, and how were they updated, and what elements were cut. Alongside that, I want to think, from an outsider's perspective, about some of the different elements that make up Alan Wake 2, and how these elements combine to be greater than the sum of their parts. How the game goes from a series of ideas and systems and assets to feeling like a convincing space with palpable characters. How does the game make us think there is more than there is? To start with this video, I want to focus on one of the foundations of the game, the setting and tone, as it is one of the things that informs all other elements of the game. The Alan Wake games share a lot in common with Twin Peaks, a 1990 television show, with both taking place in a small town, involving the FBI, and dealing with a mysterious dark presence. Alongside Alan Wake 2, I will be looking at Twin Peaks, and thinking about how the game and show take similar approaches despite being made in different mediums. Twin Peaks begins when a high school girl named Laura Palmer is found murdered on a beach. A coffee and pie lover, an FBI agent named Dale Cooper, is sent to the town of Twin Peaks to figure out what happened. And as his investigation progresses, it reveals that there are mysterious dark forces at play hidden in the suburban town. The town of Twin Peaks is small. It has a diner, a sawmill, and a log cabin lodge. Its police station has never dealt with a murder like this one. Like Twin Peaks, the Alan Wake games take place in a series of small towns in the American Northwest and use Americana iconography. Pie and coffee at a diner, small highways winding through Pacific rainforests, a gas station, log cabins, trailer parks, small suburban streets, and fishing and hunting, with stuffed animals on the walls. This setting gives Twin Peaks and the Alan Wake games a specific feeling to them, this mixture of pleasant and strange. Nostalgia for rural living, isolated from the rest of the world. Spaces that are both peaceful and liminal, an area surrounded by vast natural landscapes, where everyone knows everyone, and where nothing much happens. But spaces that to outsiders feel as if they should be moved through but not lingered in, momentarily stopped in and then passed by. Or for younger people growing up in the area, a place to escape from.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind getting some other type of job somewhere else.
You mean something that didn't include wearing stupid costumes for a creepy old amusement park in the crap hole town that time forgot?
Something like that. Yep.
For the people who do linger, it's as if they decided to stay behind and somehow have fallen out of time while the rest of the world moves forward. There is also this dinkiness to everything, with spaces feeling handmade, chucked together from whatever was around at the time, with this tacky, outdated aesthetic. These are places where it's hard to take people seriously because they still follow outdated traditions. Things that seem ubiquitous in larger centers are missing. Everything still closes down at 6 p.m. on Sundays. Gossip travels fast and it feels like everyone knows everyone and everything that's happening. You experience these places through the lens of the outsiders, Alan, Saga, and Cooper, who are from larger cities in this new place, and who originally are only meant to be there for a small amount of time. Despite the dark events taking place, it's vacation-like visiting a dark cabin. For Alan, it was originally meant to be a vacation, and Agent Cooper takes so much joy in his work that it feels like a vacation. Cooper has this fascination for the new place he is in, asking the sheriff questions and reveling in small details.
Sheriff, what kind of fantastic trees have you got growing around here? Big, majestic.
Douglas firs.
Douglas firs. Can someone get me a copy of the coroner's report on the dead girl?
There is this cultural difference between the main characters and the townfolk, and a voyeurism in seeing these towns but not being directly tied to them. And because of that, the main characters stand out. As the game and show go on, you see the day-to-day lives of the people in the town. The people of the town seem strange or goofy at first, caring so much about things that could be perceived as small. In Alan Wake, the community of Bright Falls is excited about Deerfest and obsessing over parade floats, hoping that the murderers won't end up canceling the festival. In Twin Peaks, a character named Nadine becomes obsessed with inventing truly silent window shade, which at first feels like a strange desire.
I was up all last night. Do you know what I was doing?
No, I don't.
I was inventing a noiseless, completely silent drape runner.
Then you see other parts of her life which feel like they could be more common, like her marriage feeling hollow.
Love me.
You bet.
Later on, you find out Nadine's husband, Ed, doesn't really love Nadine, but ended up married to her anyways, almost as an accident. And there is this prickliness arising from their shared resentment for each other.
Well, I'm real sorry, Nadine.
Ed, you make me sick!
Despite that, they still care about each other's well-being. You start to understand that Nadine's pursuit of truly silent window shades is her way of expressing her discontentment in her life.
You don't know how bad it is. You don't know all the things I was gonna do for us.
I know.
A new TV, I was gonna do that. I already looked at a motorboat.
Sweetheart.
It wasn't just things I was gonna buy, it was a new life we were gonna lead.
Like with Nadine, in Twin Peaks there are these common, even soap opera-like storylines with archetypal characters. There is Andy, the awkward and clumsy but pure-hearted police officer. Don't think about it too much.
Jeez!
Who is timid and childlike. You see him sob at the murder scenes.
Don't hurry. I didn't cry.
But he stands up for people and calls out people when they're being unfair, and he ends up saving the day in the end. There are teenagers caught in a love triangle, the jockey, dumb, cool guy who gets himself in over his head, and who has his girlfriend leave for a nicer, quieter guy. There is a struggle over the control of property and a family company, and a businessman trying to swindle away the land to build a new development. This could all be horribly mundane, except that this is expressed through David Lynch's unique style, which comes out both in the framing and lighting of shots, the way he uses objects and dream symbolism, but also through the way he uses dialogue. The dialogue in Twin Peaks often feels awkward, but in a charming way. There's this flatness and these little extra comments and moments where characters are not getting things or having trouble communicating.
This is Special Agent Dale Cooper.
Hey, Gary Cooper?
Agent Cooper.
FBI. Right.
These moments of miscommunication between characters and the spaces before and after conversations are things that would generally never be in other TV shows of the time.
I have to apologize again for the fluorescent lights.
All of this awkwardness for me expresses a feeling of voyeurism as it shows the moments between what you would normally see. You see challenges in the social dynamics of the townspeople. People struggling to express themselves truly. This creates a surreal, dreamlike feeling. A dream where you desperately want to tell someone something, but you don't know how. But then other times the dialogue feels authentic and charming, like the waitresses at the diner who talk about their lives to each other. They both have abusive husbands, and when things go bad, they take care of each other. And then there are these genuine, heartfelt moments, like the camaraderie between the sheriff and Cooper. Two people working in similar careers who respect each other's work.
You know why I'm whittling?
Okay, I'll bite again. Why are you whittling?
That's what you do in a town where a yellow light still means slow down, not speed up.
This awkwardness and voyeurism is also in the Alan Wake games. But the awkwardness is not really about miscommunication, but more about the mismatching of characters' worldviews. with the people from the town's experiences and role in the world being so different compared to Alan's and Saga's. You hear this in the local radio show run by Pat Maine. Like a lot of small town radio, it's just an old man rambling at night, with the interviews and stories he tells feeling like they're about nothing. These radio shows are spread throughout the Alan Wake games, playing on radios in different spaces. These shows emulate the feeling of turning on the radio in a town you've never been to and being baffled by what is playing, like hearing a live cattle auction or conspiracy theory politics.
Welcome back to the show, folks. As promised, our very own Dr. Nelson has just parked his rear end in the studio. Doc, what's your Deerfest plan like?
My plan? You make it sound a lot more organized than I ever seem to manage.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you old coot.
No plan, really. Just taking the atmosphere.
In the game, this mundaneness is a surreal contrast to what you are experiencing as you wander the dark forest and fight off monsters. But Pat's radio show has a certain comfort to it. He has a warmth in his voice, and he makes it feel like the world is a small place. And what Pat is concerned with, weather, Deerfest preparations, and unique cuckoo clocks.
Now, I hear you're doing something special for Deerfest. Tell us about that. Yeah, I'm crafting a selection of custom basswood cuckoo clocks, but the real special sauce is when it's cuckoo time and you're expecting a bird to pop out for a chirp. Out comes a big old deer. Well, that's just neat. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Is drastically different from what Saga, who investigates violent crimes for a living, and Alan, a best-selling writer, is concerned with. Through the radio, you also get a sense of some of the people you would expect to be in the town.
Why the cops bother with the trailer park?
What do you mean?
It's a trailer park. Of course you're going to have trouble in a place like that. I mean, what do you expect? The sheriff should be helping us normal citizens instead of wasting resources on those people.
There's also Rose, a waitress you meet at the Oh Dear Diner, who is an obsessive fan of Alan Wake's books. When you first show up, she has a cardboard cutout of Alan set up, and proclaims herself as Alan's biggest fan. There are the Anderson brothers, elderly leather jacket wearing men that are rock stars from the band The Old Gods of Asgard. And then there's Barry, Alan's agent. Barry doesn't fit in Bright Falls at all. Barry is boisterous, he has a big puffy red jacket and drives a yellow SUV, and is loud and talks a lot. And he's always threatening to sue people. He contrasts the town and wants to leave Bright Falls as soon as he can. Where the first game often just left an impression of the spaces and characters, in the second game everything has been expanded. In the original game, you only see the town of Bright Falls in a cutscene at first, but in the second game it drops you into the space to wander. The town shares a similar shape to the original, with most buildings being in the same spot, with a few changes such as the Elderwood Lodge, which in the first game was in a different location. But every space is more filled out, full of objects and interactions, and story moments. And these changes feel natural because of the more than 10 years between the game in the narrative, but also in real life. It's a more vivid version of what I remember, but it feels the same. As well, familiar characters have changed and aged over the past more than a decade. Aging ends up being a bit of a sub-theme in the second game, with one of the major locations being a retirement home, where you find some of the characters from the first game, including Thorn Oden and Pat Maine. In the first game, you mostly only saw the radio side of Pat, with few personal moments coming through, but in the second game you see his personal life. You visit where he lives and hear more of his internal experience. The characters in Alan Wake and Twin Peaks feel like they belong in their setting, and they help to describe the spaces by showing how they've responded to them. You can feel what people do and think about the spaces you see, with elements of them being exaggerated but still fitting. And the characters help to create the unique tone of the show and the games. As well, I think there's an important distinction with how Twin Peaks and the Alan Wake games approach the strangeness of the characters and the town. It's done generally in a way not to be othering. The show Never Bad-Heartedly makes fun of the characters living in the town, and Cooper even at one point says how much he respects the people of Twin Peaks. And the Alan Wake games ask you to empathize with the characters when it shows their fear and some of their inner lives. They may be seen as silly, but they're not dehumanized as dumb rednecks. Then you see the town change as the lives of the people become complicated by a dark presence, foreshadowed with a warning.
Don't go in there, young man. You can hurt yourself in the dark.
Then you find out there's been a series of missing persons around Cauldron Lake. Suddenly the town feels darker and the tone sinks into an eeriness. A teenage love triangle is interrupted by the death of Laura Palmer, the guilt that the friend and lover feel, and the complicated forming of their love. The parents of Laura are shocked by her death. Her death affects everyone in the town. After having a run-in with Agent Nightingale, you hear Pat reflecting on his life, reminiscing on a lost love.
She was the one. She was. And I let her drift away from me. Maybe I didn't put in the work, I don't know, but, well, since then, and it was a long time ago, but since then there hasn't been anyone, not like her. And I'm not saying I dwell on her or haven't moved on. I like my life. I'm not living in the past, but I do miss the way she completed me.
You can't argue with the heart, Pat.
I'm sorry, folks. I had kind of a scary experience last night, and let's just say it's shaken a few things loose.
Through the radio show, you also hear strange going-ons in the town, and the effect the dark presence is having on the town.
I had a, argument with Danny. You know Danny, and, then I got in trouble with the law, and, I'm just, well...
I heard something like that, Walt.
Yeah. Well, he's, Danny's my best friend, and, they let me out on bail today. And now I'm just alone here at the window, waiting. Man, and there's something in the air tonight, man.
I was just outside looking up at the sky above our broadcast tower thinking the same thing. What are you waiting for, Walt?
I don't know. Something's gonna happen. I think I better go.
Well, Walt, maybe...
No, thanks, Pat.
Well, good luck to you, Walt. Hang in there.
The darkness begins seeping into people's minds, and soon after, Rose's mind is taken. The darkness convinces her to drug and kidnap her hero, Alan. The darkness engulfs the town of Bright Falls, and now the kitschy wood and taxidermied animal aesthetic becomes less charming and more creepy. The spaces become filled with shadows, and the cluttered but clean spaces are now covered in broken remnants from attacks. And the radio show returns in Alan Wake 2, weirder as the radio show host seems to be losing his mind.
There's no such thing as Davis family beef jerky. I don't sell beef jerky. I've never made beef jerky. I don't particularly like beef jerky. I'm getting crazy phone calls for jerky orders, day and night. You got confused old ladies all over this goddamn town on the hunt for imaginary beef jerky, asking for insane flavors like hickory teriyaki, which clearly isn't a thing.
If you don't sell beef jerky, then somebody needs to tell your lovely wife Wendy, because she's out there at the market every Sunday selling it.
Wendy is dead, Pat.
No, that's not right. I just saw Wendy at the market last weekend.
Wendy went missing 13 years ago, Pat. They found her body. She's dead.
He's more disheveled and has moved into a nursing home, and it's becoming clear that he's losing track of reality.
Get it together, Pat. Breathe. Just breathe. All right, look around. Make a list of what's real, just like he said. A filing cabinet, microphone, computer, chair, soundboard, sticky note. Breathe. Oh, breathe. Breathe. You're okay. This is real and you're okay.
For this next section, I'm going to go into major spoilers for the original Alan Wake. So if you don't want to hear them, jump to here. The town is being affected by the Dark Presence, a presence that comes from under Cauldron Lake. Through the manuscript pages, you get to hear some of the characters' internal experiences, a flooding of their minds, and the approaching darkness. The Dark Presence has the ability to take over people, eventually drawing them into the lake. But it can also change reality, change details in people's memories, change what people do, and even change or create physical spaces. But all this has to be done believably and requires creativity. So the darkness can only do this by using an artist's ability to create. When Alan wakes up in a crashed car at the beginning, it's actually a week later, and he doesn't remember where that week went. During that time, Alan wrote the manuscript pages while he was trapped under the lake in the dark place. He wrote himself into the story as a way to escape and save Alice. But while he was writing, he was also fighting the Dark Presence control. The darkness is manipulating Alan, but it can't fully take over like with other Taken, because it needs his mind to be intact to write the story. And the darkness has to follow the story Alan writes. The darkness has also taken over different parts of his mind and created an alternate version of him called Scratch, which is changing parts of the story he writes. The darkness in Alan's writing has effects beyond just the nearby area. His writing kills an FBI agent who was the partner of Agent Nightingale. Nightingale figures out that it's Alan's writing that caused this to happen, and he ends up being fired from the FBI because no one believes him. He goes to Bright Falls to find Alan and get revenge, to arrest or kill Alan. At the end of the first game, Nightingale is taken over by the darkness and swallowed by Cauldron Lake. In the second game, he emerges as a Taken. At the end of the first game, Alan sacrifices himself to free his wife and enters the dark place. He begins to write another manuscript. The second game picks up from there. Alan has been writing and given up and began again multiple times over the past more than a decade. So the Alan Wake games and Twin Peaks walk this line between dark and strange, charming and pleasant, trying to figure out who brutally killed a teenage girl, then taking a break and obsessing over how good the pies and coffee are.
You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
Alan's serious search for his missing wife is interrupted by these silly meta moments, like enemies shouting random things, or the video game guy in Hartman's Lodge.
That's Emerson. We're actually making some progress with him, I'm happy to say. He works on video games. It's trash, of course, but...
For me, it was this feeling and setting that made the first Alan Wake game stand out for me. Unlike a lot of third-person horror, the darkness is not taken over. It is something that hides in the underground. It seeps into people's lives. Some manage to hold it off for years, and others succumb to it. I imagine from a making perspective that with the setting and tone established, it's easier to begin to figure out the other elements of the game, to come up with characters and spaces, and to figure out how a player moves through those spaces, and what a player does in those spaces. It has a feeling to move towards. It has media to draw inspiration from. And outside of the story, its setting and feeling is the main thing that glues everything together. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.